Dawn pulls a thin gray veil over Ocean Beach, the kind that makes the horizon look like a pencil line the bay has drawn for itself. The tide breathes in and out, steady, patient, erasing yesterday and offering today the same empty slate it gives every morning. A jogger comes down the hard-packed sand near the waterline, breath visible in the cool salt air. He slows when he sees the gulls clustered tight, pecking, hopping back, pecking again. One gull lifts, and the shape beneath it resolves. He stops moving without making the decision to stop. For a long second it is only the sound of water and wings. Then he turns his head away and calls for help, with a voice that cracks, as if something inside him knows this morning will not let itself be forgotten. Police canvas tape flutters near the wind-scoured stairs by the dunes. Detective Harvey Mulhall steps under it, brim pulled low, coat collar turned up. He carries the kind of weariness that looks like habit more than exhaustion. San Francisco has given him plenty to carry. Bar fights, bad deals that end in basements, lovers who mistake rage for intimacy. This feels different the instant the ocean is at his back and the body is at his feet. A young man lies where the high tide quit, jeans darkened by seawater, a shirt stuck to his ribs like a second skin. There is an artistry to the violence that sets Mulhall's teeth on edge, a deliberate hand, neat work. Sand has crusted at the edges of the wound like sugar. A few feet away, a single sheet of paper flaps and lifts and drops, trying to escape but pinned by dampness. A charcoal face stares up from it. The face is alive in a way the body is not. A quick line at the cheekbone, a confident shadow beneath the lower lip, eyes that hold a smile. Mulhall crouches, gloved hands steady. The paper is slick, but the drawing holds. He studies the strokes. Someone knew how to see. Someone wanted to capture a man so well he could be recognized with a glance. Mulhall's partner, John Drake, arrives beside him and swears under his breath. No need for words. The scene says enough. A lifeguard tower 100 yards away creaks in the breeze. The city behind them is a silhouette of hills and wires and the shoulders of buildings. By the time the body is zipped and lifted, the sun is higher, a cool coin behind the fog. The jogger sits on the back bumper of a patrol car, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he is not drinking. He tries to explain what happened and fails, so Mulhall puts a hand on the man's shoulder just long enough to say, "That is enough." The morgue smells the way every morgue smells. Antiseptic layered over metal, layered over time. The coroner talks like a doctor and a historian at once, listing facts in a voice that takes no position. Young male, 20s. No ID. A set of clean cuts that say the blade was sharp and the hand used to it. The angle suggests someone facing him or at least unafraid of being seen. Mulhall stands back, notebook unopened. He has seen enough to write a book and learned not to write too soon. On a side tray, a tech has set the sketch to dry on blotter paper. The face on the page looks back without accusation. It is an intimate drawing, the kind you make when you have time, when the person in front of you believes you are trying to honor them. Mulhall feels something shift in his chest, a click of recognition he cannot place. He asks the coroner to note a detail, and the coroner nods, already ahead of him. Back at the Hall of Justice, Mulhall pins a photograph to a corkboard already crowded with faces and maps. He adds the sketch beside the photo, uses a red pencil to circle the word linked near another face found weeks ago near Land's End. The similarities rise like bruises. Men with easy smiles and careful hair. Men who might be taken for actors, or line cooks or students depending on the angle of the light. Men who liked men in a city that promises safety but sometimes lies. The board hums with the quiet electricity of patterns forming. Drake comes in with coffee so strong it could argue with you. He sets it down and points at the sketch. Same hand as the last one, he says, though they never recovered paper at Land's End. Mulhall agrees without saying the word yes. They both know how this feels. A case where the city pulls the drapes instead of opening the windows. Day slips forward and the fog lifts like a stage curtain. Castro Street wakes up around noon as if nightlife has its own time zone. Posters for concerts layer over one another on poles. A barber pole spins slowly in a storefront window. The street is a river of denim and leather and quiet joy. People moving the way you do when your skin feels like home for the first time. In the bars, ice rattles against glass. Someone laughs too loud. Someone kisses someone else the way they intend to kiss them again. In a dim corner of a bar that smells of lime, beer and old wood, a tall young man sits with a sketchbook on his knee. He draws the face across from him. Not a lover's gaze, not quite. More like a careful student, reverent and sure. Patrons notice him and do not notice him. He is handsome in a way that invites conversation and explains his quiet as shyness. He tears a page free and slides it across to its subject with a small nod. The man who receives it grins, touches the paper as if making sure it is real, then tucks it into his jacket with the kind of pride you save for something that feels like proof that you were seen. They call him the Doodler, a nickname that began as a joke and stuck like a label you do not mind wearing. He never writes his name. He leaves the bar the way fog leaves a streetlight. One moment present, the next, a memory. From the Castro to Polk Street to a diner out by Geary, the city turns its face as the day leans toward evening. Mulhall and Drake walk Golden Gate Park's wooded paths with a ranger who knows every cut-through teens use to avoid curfew. The ranger jokes about raccoons smarter than most men. Mulhall listens. He looks where the ground is churned, where a bottle cap has been pressed into earth, where a cigarette butt rests like punctuation. They find the third body off a path between cypress and Monterey pine, the smell of eucalyptus sharp, almost medicinal. It is the same care, the same clinical cruelty. There is no sketch this time, but the victim's hand is ink-stained, as if he touched charcoal or graphite that did not belong to him. Drake looks at Mulhall, and Mulhall looks back, and the exchange says, "This is not coincidence." The press later will give the killer a name. Detectives never need one. They only need a pattern. At the precinct, the captain rubs his forehead as if it could be erased from the day's work. He says to keep the lid on it. The city does not need a panic. The city never needs a panic, according to men who answer phones for the mayor. There is also the unspoken part. The men being killed live in a corner of San Francisco that still makes certain people flinch. An attitude as old as fear and as new as a headline. Mulhall leaves the meeting with a file under his arm and frustration under his ribs. He stops at a bulletin board where missing posters are pinned with push tacks and cheap hope. He recognizes a face from last month. He takes down a sheet and makes a photocopy, then pins the original back as if leaving a flower at a grave. News finds its own roots. A reporter named Linda Vega at a small hungry paper on Mission Street asks questions in places that do not always welcome reporters. She buys coffee for bartenders and listens more than she talks. She notices flyers taped near payphones warning the community to watch who they meet after midnight. She writes a piece with a headline that is more plea than tease, and her editor raises an eyebrow but runs it because it is good, and because sometimes the responsibility to warn outweighs the fear of blowback. Mulhall reads the piece at his desk with the lamp turned low. He circles two names she mentions, young men last seen in bars where a quiet artist sketched strangers as gifts. He recognizes the same sketch style in a photograph that accompanies the article, a portrait a victim's friend has shared. The drawing is tender, precise, the work of someone who knows the architecture of the face and the sins of the hand. He starts to build the room cases sometimes need, a web of yarn and photographs, or, more accurately, a map of attention. He pins the city and spreads thread from Ocean Beach to Land's End, to a cluster of bars in the Castro, to a cafe where a waiter remembered a charming man who left caricatures on napkins. Drake adds index cards, dates, times, names with too many blanks after them. You can feel a case become a living thing when the board starts to look back at you. The pressure grows as the department receives 3 quiet visits in the same week. Men with steady eyes and unsteady hands sit with Mulhall and say they were attacked by someone who fits the sketcher's description. They survived. They prefer to remain anonymous. They do not want their names in the paper. One of them wears a ring he turns around and around on his finger while he speaks, a circle of cheap gold that suggests a family in another neighborhood, another life. Another man says he is an immigrant whose family would not understand. A third simply says, "I cannot be in a courtroom." Mulhall does not push them farther than he has to. He writes witness A, B, C in a notebook with a pencil he keeps sharp enough to cut rope. He hears the fear behind their refusals and does not judge it. He knows that institutions can be as dangerous as men with knives, depending on who you are. The fog returns heavier one night, and with it a sense that the city has decided to keep secrets. A patrol car cruises the great highway. Headlights show a man walking alone, hands in pockets, the kind of posture that says he's thinking of either nothing or something he is not ready to name. The car passes. The man keeps walking. The ocean is a steady shushing, like a mother telling a child to hush now, hush. In a bar lit blue by a neon sign, the artist draws again. He does not hurry. He does not flirt. He offers the finished sketches with a small, almost apologetic smile. People smile back because who refuses such a gift? He leaves before last call, always before last call. On a Tuesday that feels like a Sunday because the city is out of step, another body turns up near the Presidio, and before the news can make it to the radio, the grapevine has already carried it along Polk and up Market, and through the back rooms where conversations are half loud, half coded. Linda Vega types as fast as her fingers manage. Her editor tells her to take care. This is a city that prefers to see what it wants to see. She says that is exactly the problem. Mulhall stands at the news scene with his coat wet at the cuffs and the taste of salt in his mouth. He looks at the hands of the dead man. Clean nails, a smear of graphite at the side of the index finger, a stamp on the back of the hand from a club that uses an anchor as its logo. He has Drake send a patrol down to that club with a stack of photographs and a question that is more invitation than demand. Tell us what you know. Help us keep each other alive. Word comes back the next afternoon. People saw a quiet guy sketching. He was polite. He complimented a bartender on the way he cut lemon peels. He might have said he studied art. He might have said nothing at all. Descriptions converge and diverge in the way of eyewitness memory. Mulhall writes what matches in ink and what disagrees in pencil. Night after night, he goes home late to a small kitchen where the radio speaks softly to itself. He hangs his coat on the same hook, sets his hat on the same chair. He pours coffee more out of ritual than need. The sketch from Ocean Beach lies on his table like a guest who will not leave. He looks at it and does not look away until his eyes sting. The city moves around him, cable cars clacking on Powell, a street saxophone under the awning at Union Square, the smell of garlic and steam from a Chinatown kitchen door, the hush of the library where a young man leafs through an anatomy book with a seriousness that might be study and might be something else entirely. A hand traces muscle groups on paper until they are right, until they look like they could move. Mulhall knows a pattern when it climbs the spine, an artist who hunts with flattery, a blade that speaks in lines instead of letters, a closet the size of a city where fear keeps good men quiet. He pins a fresh map and draws a line none of the bars will thank him for. A nightly path a killer might walk to choose a face to draw, a voice to follow into the fog. Near midnight, the phone on his desk rings and Drake's voice tells him the captain wants numbers, not warnings, closure, not caution. The mayor's office has called. The phrase public confidence gets used. Mulhall says the only confidence that matters is the kind a man has that he can leave a bar and get home alive. Drake does not disagree. He just says, do what you can with what they give you. Ocean Beach again, days later. The wind is up, scouring lines into the sand. Mulhall stands where the first body lay and listens to the tide. A piece of paper tumbles past his shoe, then skitters away, then catches again at a clump of grass. He picks it up. It is nothing, a flyer for a dance night 2 weeks old, and he crushes it in his fist with more anger than the paper deserves. He turns back toward the city. It waits in layers, the neon and the granite and the painted eaves, the little kitchens and the big promises, the secret rooms where desire wears a new name, and the open streets where it does not. He thinks of the men who smiled into a stranger's sketchbook and then into a blade. He thinks, whoever is doing this draws to remember and kills to erase. The first act settles its weight over the board and the beach and the bars, a curtain that has lifted but not yet revealed the stage. The city inhales. The ocean holds a breath. And somewhere, a pencil begins to move across paper, beginning the next face before the name has even been learned. Rain slides down the glass outside San Francisco General. The city is a smear of neon and puddles. Inside, the ward hums with the low, steady sound of machines and the murmurs of nurses passing in the hall. Detective Harvey Mulhall stands by a hospital bed. The man lying there is pale, his jaw stitched, one eye swollen. He's alive by a miracle or mistake. The doctors said the cut missed his artery by a fraction. Mulhall keeps his voice even. Do you remember what happened? The man nods slowly. He doesn't look at Mulhall. His eyes trace the rain. He was kind, he says. Said he was an artist. Asked if he could draw me. Mulhall waits. He had this sketchbook. Said he liked the shape of faces. Then he smiled. And it changed. He trails off. His hands tremble. Mulhall leans forward. Can you describe him? The man hesitates. He opens his mouth, then closes it. I can't go public. You know what they'll do if they find out. Mulhall nods, understanding the unspoken. The man's fear isn't only of the killer, it's of a city that still doesn't forgive the truth of who he is. Mulhall says quietly, You're not the only one who's afraid. The survivor doesn't reply. The rain keeps falling. The bars of Castro Street are quieter now. Word travels faster than the news. The regulars look at strangers with suspicion. Conversations hush when the door opens. At the Pendulum, the bartender wipes the same spot for an hour, eyes darting to every newcomer. Linda Vega, the young reporter from the San Francisco Star, sits at the bar with a notebook. Her voice is gentle when she asks questions. Did anyone see a man sketching here last week? A drag performer nearby answers, Honey, there's always someone sketching, but there's only one that makes people disappear. Linda writes that down. The Doodler? She asks. The performer gives a small, grim smile. That's what we call him now. He draws your face, then he keeps it. Outside, the rain has stopped. The street glows under streetlights blurred by fog. A man walks past with a sketchbook under his arm. Nobody notices him go. In a small room above a laundromat, a man sits under a single bulb. Sketchbooks are stacked on the table. Dozens of faces in charcoal and pencil. Some smile, some frown, some look frightened. He works quietly, almost lovingly. Each line is deliberate, tender. He hums softly as he draws, flipping the page to start again. He studies his own reflection in a mirror beside the table and draws that too, a half face, unfinished. When he's done, he pins the sketches to the wall. The room looks like a gallery of ghosts. The detective's office smells of cigarette smoke and stale coffee. Mulhall's board has grown into a tapestry of maps, photos, sketches, and pins. Every face of every victim stares back at him. Each is a young man found near the ocean or the park. Throats cut, clothes arranged neatly. His partner, John Drake, leans on the doorframe. You're living here now, huh? Mulhall doesn't look up. 3 survivors. Same description. Same pattern. One man. Drake sighs. The captain says we can't push witnesses who don't want to testify. Too much attention? Politics. Mulhall lights another cigarette. We've got a killer walking free because everyone's afraid to say his name. He looks at the sketch from the beach. The smiling man. He's hunting ghosts, John, and we're letting him. At City Hall, Mulhall meets with the chief. The room is polished oak and brass, the air thick with cigar smoke. The chief leans back. We can't afford this story getting out of hand. We're already under fire for last year's budget cuts. Mulhall keeps his jaw tight. Sir, 5 dead men isn't a rumor. It's a pattern. The chief's tone sharpens. You want headlines about a serial killer targeting homosexuals? You want protests, panic? We keep this internal until there's proof. Mulhall's voice rises. There is proof. It's lying in the morgue. The chief stands, ending the conversation. Then solve it quietly. Mulhall leaves, anger simmering under his ribs. Outside, the fog has rolled back in, swallowing the city whole. Linda Vega's article hits the press 2 days later. The Doodler stalks the Castro. Police stay silent. It's bold, relentless, and instantly controversial. The phone rings all day in the newsroom. Some thank her for speaking up. Others call her a liar or worse. Mulhall reads the paper at his desk, lips tight. He knows she's telling the truth, and that she just made herself a target. That night, Linda walks home down Market Street. Her footsteps echo on wet pavement. Behind her, someone's walking too, slow, steady. She turns. No one's there. Just the sound of rain dripping from a neon sign. She hurries home, locks her door, and slides the deadbolt twice. Morning fog burns off to reveal another body, this time near Lake Merced. Mulhall arrives first. The coroner's report is already a repeat. Male, mid-20s, clean-cut, sketch found nearby. But this time, the sketch is different. It's not just the victim. It's two figures, the victim and the artist. Mulhall studies it. The artist's face is unfinished. He turns to Drake. He's leaving messages now. He wants us to see him. Drake looks at the waves rolling against the lake shore. So what do we do? Mulhall says, we draw him back. Night settles over San Francisco like smoke. In his apartment, Mulhall clears his desk and places the sketches side by side. Each victim smiling, alive in graphite and death. He whispers, you wanted to be seen. So I'll look. Outside, a distant saxophone plays from a bar down the hill. A man sits alone at the counter, sketchbook open, pencil moving gently across the page. He smiles, faint and private, as if the city itself is posing for him. Fade to black. Detective Harvey Mulhall sits in his dim office, the night pressing against the window. The only sound is the hum of the fluorescent light above him, and the soft scratch of a pencil on paper. He's redrawing the killer's face again, every detail pieced together from witness fragments. Tall, quiet, polite, a talented artist. He pins the new sketch beside the others. Victims on the left, suspects on the right, a tangle of red thread crossing between. 5 victims, 3 survivors, 1 city too afraid to speak. Mulhall leans back in his chair. He's blending in because no one's looking, he says to the empty room. He circles a single word on his board. Doodler, Friday night. The midnight sun bar glows under the haze of cigarette smoke and soft disco beats. Men laugh, flirt, dance, but Mulhall isn't here for pleasure. He sits in the corner, pretending to read a newspaper while scanning the crowd. The bartender leans in quietly. You the cop? Mulhall doesn't answer. The bartender nods anyway. He was here again last night. Same guy with the sketchbook. Draws faces, doesn't drink much, leaves before closing. Mulhall's eyes shift to a figure at the far end of the bar. Tall, alone, pencil moving over a napkin. When the man looks up, their eyes meet for the briefest second. He smiles, a small knowing curve of the lips, then stands, slides his drawing toward the man he'd been sketching, and disappears into the crowd before Mulhall can reach him. Mulhall rushes outside, scanning the street, but the fog has swallowed him whole. Only the sound of waves somewhere in the distance. The next morning, a tip comes in. A young man fitting the description was picked up after an altercation in a cafe on Polk Street. He's calm, polite, articulate. A talented art student, African-American, mid-20s. Mulhall sits across from him in the interrogation room. The suspect's sketchbook sits on the table between them. You like drawing people, Mulhall says. The young man nods. Faces are stories. I like stories. Mulhall flips through the pages. Dozens of portraits, all male, all precise. A few look eerily familiar. He pauses on one face. You knew him, Mulhall says. The man shrugs. I meet a lot of people. Mulhall closes the sketchbook. You met too many who ended up dead. The man smiles, just a faint hint of amusement. That's not proof, detective. Mulhall stares at him for a long moment, searching for anything. Fear, guilt, humanity. He finds only calm. Where were you last Friday night? The man replies evenly, Drawing. 3 men sit in a room at the precinct. Curtains drawn, names withheld. Each survived an attack. Each remembers the same face. Mulhall walks them through photographs and sketches. One of them, a middle-aged man with deep lines of worry, points to the suspect's sketch. "That's him," another nods. "He offered to draw me. Said he liked the shape of my face." Mulhall takes their statements, voice steady, hands trembling. "You'll testify?" he asks. Silence. The oldest survivor shakes his head first. "You know what this'll do to me. My family, my job. I can't." Mulhall doesn't argue. He simply nods, the disappointment buried under understanding. The second man whispers, "He'll walk free." Mulhall replies softly, "He already has." At City Hall, the district attorney leans back in his chair, rubbing his temple. "Without witnesses, there's no trial," he says. "We can't win on suspicion." Mulhall paces. "We have a suspect, 3 eyewitnesses, identical methods, matching sketches." The DA interrupts. "And no one willing to testify." "That's not evidence, detective. That's rumor." Mulhall slams a folder onto the desk. "It's murder." The DA sighs. "Then solve it quietly. The city's reputation can't take this kind of press." Mulhall leaves without another word, his knuckles white. Late night Market Street. The city glows in sickly yellow from the fog-dimmed streetlights. A man exits a bar, slightly drunk, humming a tune. He doesn't see the shadow step out from the alley. A soft voice behind him. "You've got an interesting face." He turns. The doodler smiles, sketchbook in hand. The man laughs nervously. "You some kind of artist?" The doodler says nothing, just begins to draw. The pencil moves fast, sure, graceful. The man watches, flattered. "That's really good." Then the doodler looks up, eyes cold now. "You should have seen what I did before this." The man stumbles back, fear blooming too late. A flash of metal in the streetlight. Then nothing but the sound of the ocean's wind. Police sirens wail near Land's End. Another body. Another sketch. Mulhall stands over it, fists clenched. "He's taunting us," he mutters. Drake places a hand on his shoulder. "Captain says to close the case if we can't prove it." Mulhall stares down at the drawing. 2 faces again. The victim, and next to him, the same unfinished self-portrait from before. "He wants me to know he's still here," Mulhall says quietly. The suspect walks free. No witnesses, no charges. Reporters swarm the steps outside the courthouse. Cameras flash. The man shields his eyes, smiles slightly, and says nothing. Mulhall watches from across the street. The suspect's calm expression says everything, victory or indifference. Drake mutters, "He knows we can't touch him." Mulhall's voice is low. "For now." That night, the city feels colder. The fog rolls back through the streets like a slow tide. Mulhall drives alone along the great highway, the ocean a dark wall beside him. He pulls over near Ocean Beach, steps out, and stands where the first body was found. He whispers to the waves, "You think silence will save you? You're wrong. I'll find you." A breeze carries the faint sound of laughter through the fog. Or maybe it's just the wind. Mulhall stares into the dark until dawn. Rain slicks the pavement outside. The San Mateo County Coroner's Office. Detective Erin Chu signs her name on a release form as thunder grumbles far out over the Pacific. She and her partner, Sam Rivera, are there to collect what's left of the Doodler's belongings. The clerk wheels out a small gray locker and opens it. Inside are clothes folded with care, a few pencils worn to stubs, and a battered leather sketchbook tied shut with string. Erin slips on gloves and unties the knot. The sketchbook sighs as it opens, pages rustling like the breath of something that has been waiting decades to be seen. Dozens of faces look up at her. Men of every type. Bartenders, sailors, students, strangers, each rendered with tenderness and precision. Every one of them could have been someone's son, brother, or lover. Then, toward the back, she finds something unexpected. A drawing of a younger detective, Harvey Mulhall, the original investigator. His expression is sharp, weary, and watchful. Beneath it, a single line in neat cursive. He was always looking at me. I liked that. Aaron's stomach knots. The killer drew the man who hunted him and kept the portrait for 40 years. Aaron and Sam visit Mulhall's old residence, now abandoned. The building smells of dust and rusted pipes. In the corner, a wooden desk still stands. Drawers filled with papers Mulhall never filed away. They find an envelope labeled "If They Ever Ask Again." Inside is a letter in Mulhall's handwriting. I knew who he was, but no one would speak. The survivors chose silence over truth, and I couldn't blame them. I saw him once, in a bar, sketching like nothing had ever happened. I followed him outside. He smiled and said, "You see people too, detective." And then he walked away. I think part of me wanted him to. Erin folds the letter carefully, her throat tight. Sam mutters, "He was right there the whole time." Erin nods, and the city turned the other way. Days later, a small press briefing is held at the San Francisco Hall of Justice. Erin stands before a row of cameras, the decades-old file now closed beside her. She speaks calmly. The suspect, long known as the Doodler, passed away last month. While the case is now formally closed, our department recognizes that justice was never served. We honor the lives of Edward Perry, Warren Andrews, and the other known victims, as well as those who were never identified. This investigation exposed more than a killer. It revealed a time when silence cost lives. Reporters scribble notes. Cameras flash. No one cheers. The room feels reverent, heavy with the knowledge that truth came too late. Weeks later, in the Castro, a new mural appears. Faces painted across the brick wall. The Doodler's victims, vibrant and alive, surrounded by color and light. At the bottom, a line of text reads, "We remember the voices that were never heard." Linda Vega stands with Erin, both quiet as the crowd gathers for the unveiling. Linda says softly, "You think he ever regretted it?" Erin shakes her head. "I think he couldn't stop seeing people as art, even when they begged to be seen as human." They stand there as the sun drops behind the buildings, turning the mural gold. Later that night, Erin returns alone to the evidence room. She can't shake the feeling that something remains unfinished. She opens one of the old boxes marked "Recovered Sketches, 1975. Inside, wrapped in wax paper, is a final drawing. It's not a victim. It's a self-portrait. The Doodler himself, perfectly complete this time. His eyes are open, direct, almost pleading. At the bottom, one final inscription. "Every face I drew was a confession. Every smile, a prayer for forgiveness." Erin stares at it for a long time before resealing the envelope. She whispers, "You finally finished it." The wind off the Pacific smells of salt and rain. Erin walks along Ocean Beach, the same place where it began. She stops near the dunes and watches the water darken under the evening sky. She kneels and lays a single page from the sketchbook, the Doodler's self-portrait, in the sand. The tide reaches for it, then slowly pulls it away, the paper bending, dissolving into the waves. The surf roars once more, then fades into silence. Months later, a small exhibition opens at a Castro art space. Faces of the Fog, Remembering the Unnamed. On the walls hang reprints of recovered sketches, alongside photographs of the victims, each labeled with a short biography gathered by volunteers and historians. A plaque near the entrance reads, "Dedicated to those who were lost, and those who refused to look away." Erin stands quietly in the corner, watching visitors stop and linger before each face. One young man, maybe the age the victims were then, studies a portrait for a long moment, then says softly to his friend, "They're beautiful." Erin nods to herself and leaves without saying a word. Outside, San Francisco hums, streetcars clattering, music drifting from the Castro bars, the city alive and unafraid. The camera lifts above the streets, past the rainbow flags, over the rooftops, and toward the ocean. The fog creeps in again, gentle this time, wrapping the coast in gray. A faint sound, pencil against paper, echoes one last time, then fades beneath the wind. The screen fades to black.